Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, right? And you never have to do a single task that you hate ever again.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Right. Like no filing reports, no endless email chains, um, no scrubbing toilets. Unless, of course, you are someone who genuinely finds peace in scrubbing toilets.
Yeah, I'm sure there are people out there who find that relaxing.
Exactly. But picture this. You also have absolutely zero financial debt.
Note at all.
None. No mortgage hanging over your head,
Yeah.
no student loans draining your bank account every month.
Wow.
But, and this is where it gets really wild, let us take it even further, you have zero emotional debt.
Wait, emotional debt, what do you mean by that?
I mean, you owe nothing to your friends, you owe nothing to your boss, and incredibly, you do not even owe, like, a debt of gratitude or obligation or loyalty to your own family.
Okay, that sounds like a total fantasy. Or maybe, a thought experiment from some late-night philosophy seminar.
Right, totally.
Because the idea of completely wiping the slate clean of every single obligation, both the financial ones and the emotional ones that tie human society together, I mean, it completely challenges the very foundation of how we interact with each other.
Yeah, it really does. And, well, okay, let us unpack this. Because today, welcome to the deep dive. We are diving into a source that treats this exact scenario not as some hypothetical game, but as a practical working blueprint for human existence.
It's just fascinating.
It is. We are looking at this really detailed text from 2010. It was written by a man named Zufeng, and it outlines the day-to-day operations of a real-world community in China. It was originally called the Second Home, and I think it later became known as New Oasis for Life.
Yes, New Oasis for Life.
So the mission of our deep dive today is to really explore this text as this radical reimagination of society. We want to see how this community completely dismantles our traditional concepts of, work, social obligation, and human connection.
And, to really grasp what they're doing out there, we have to understand their ultimate goal first.
Right.
Because Weifeng's blueprint, it does not describe the second home as just some alternative commune where, like, burnt-out city dwellers go to grow organic vegetables and escape the rat race.
Right. It is not just a hippie retreat.
Exactly. He explicitly defines this community as a transfer station from the human world to the heavenly kingdom. It is an active training ground.
Wait, a training ground. So they are not just farming, they're actually preparing for something cosmic.
Precisely that. The residents there, they're referred to as Chanyuan Celestials.
Chanyuan Celestials.
Yeah. And they belong to this broader spiritual and philosophical movement founded by Suifeng called Lifechanyuan. And the entire purpose of living in the second home is to learn the lifestyle of what their cosmology calls the 1,000-year world.
The 1,000-year world.
Right, and eventually the Elysium world.
Yeah.
So these are envisioned as higher paradisiacal states of human existence.
Oh, wow.
Yet the community members truly believe they are actively cultivating the moral sentiment and the qualities of celestial beings. They are laying the biological and spiritual groundwork to literally enter a heavenly kingdom.
Okay, so I see the overarching spiritual vision there, and that is fascinating. But the moment we start talking about a training ground for a heavenly kingdom, my brain immediately trips over the practical logistics.
Of course.
Because think about it, if you and I are walking around cultivating celestial qualities and we are keeping our eyes on paradise, well, who is doing the dishes?
Right,
I
exactly.
mean, somebody still has to make lunch for everyone. Somebody has to sweep the floors and physically take out the trash.
And what is fascinating here is how the community solves that exact logistical problem.
How do they do it?
Well, they use this concept they call the complementation of advantages.
Complementation of advantages.
Yeah. Schwiffing's blueprint points out this fundamental flaw in our secular world, which is that survival basically forces almost all of us into jobs we completely despise.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You take a job you are not suited for, or one that just crushes your spirit simply because you need to pay the rent.
Right. You need health insurance. You need to buy groceries.
Exactly. But in the second home, there's a hard, fast rule. Nobody can be forced to do anything they dislike or that they are not naturally good at.
Wait, really? Nobody?
Nobody. Everyone operates entirely based on their inborn character, their natural specialties, and their hobbies.
Okay, so if we apply that to, you, the listener, if your absolute passion in life is gardening, you just get to be the community gardener.
Yep, that is your role.
And if your passion is, I do not know, organizing massive spreadsheets, you just do their logistics.
Exactly.
It is almost like it is like a perfectly optimized role-playing game where everyone only liaises their favorite character class.
That is a great way to put it.
And so, because everyone is doing exactly what they have a natural advantage in, Xuan claims the result is like first-class work across the board.
That is the theory, yes. When your personal passion aligns completely with your daily duty, the quality of the output theoretically skyrockets.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here.
Sure, go for it.
That makes perfect sense for the fun jobs or the highly skilled jobs, right? Like being the architect or the head chef.
Right.
But what if nobody in this community has a burning passion for cleaning the gutters?
Yeah, the dirty work.
Right. What if nobody's hobby is doing the laundry for 60 people? In the real world, the jobs nobody wants to do still have to get done somehow. So how do they avoid creating this hierarchy where some people get to be the brilliant philosophers and others get stuck doing the grueling manual labor?
Well, that tension makes total sense from our secular perspective. I mean, we naturally rank jobs. But the blueprint outlines a really brilliant, albeit pretty radical, loophole to that whole problem.
Okay, what is the loophole?
In our world, how do we rank a job?
Usually by how much it pays.
Right, by how much it pays and the social prestige attached to it.
Mhm.
The CEO is seen as higher than the janitor because the CEO makes 10 times the money and drives a nicer car.
Yeah. Money is basically the measuring stick for human value in the secular world.
Exactly. But in the second home, the community itself takes full responsibility for everything. The collective provides all the food, the clothing, the shelter, the transportation,
Everything.
everything. Because every single one of your physical needs is met by the group, there are no salaries.
Wow.
There are no bonuses. There is absolutely zero financial reward for doing one job over another.
Oh, wow. Okay, that completely shifts the paradigm.
It does.
If the architect who is designing the new dining hall and the person who is just mopping the floor of that dining hall, if they receive the exact same housing and they eat the exact same meals and get the exact same level of health care,
Then the hierarchy starts to dissolve.
yeah, the stigma attached to manual labor just evaporates.
Precisely. Think about why certain jobs feel degrading in the secular world. It is almost always because they do not pay a living wage, which forces the worker into a lower standard of living.
Right, society basically punishes them financially.
Yes. So when you remove the financial punishment for doing dirty work, you remove the shame. People who genuinely enjoy organizing or cleaning or just working with their hands, they can just do those things without being penalized by society.
Okay, I understand the economic shift of removing salaries. I get how that solves the prestige problem.
Yeah.
But that brings up a massive logistical void for me. If wages are not holding the social fabric together and people are not out there saving up money for their own retirement or, their kids' college funds, who takes care of the vulnerable?
That is the big question.
Right, because our entire secular safety net is built on the family unit pooling its resources together to survive.
And that brings us to the most radical shift in the entire text. To make this moneyless, obligation-free society actually work, they had to completely dissolve the traditional family unit.
Which is just staggering to read.
Oh, really?
I mean, the nuclear family, right? Husbands, wives, parents exclusively raising their own biological children. The text says it is just gone.
Entirely gone. The blueprint dictates that the home takes over every single function that the family normally provides, from the cradle to the grave.
Wow.
Yeah, when a child is born, the community brings them up and educates them. The community provides all the health care. When residents get old, the community cares for them.
So dependency is completely transferred.
Exactly. Transferred from the individual family straight to the collective whole.
I want you, the listener, to really imagine that for a second. Just imagine knowing that you do not have to save a single dime for your parents' elder care because an entire community is going to manage it.
It is a wild thought.
It is.
Yep.
But the trade-off is that they are no longer legally or socially bound to you as your specific responsibility.
Right.
I mean, it sounds incredibly efficient on paper, but it also sounds terrifyingly detached.
It does.
Does a system like that actually hold up under real pressure?
Well, the text actually provides a very specific real-world stress test to prove that it does hold up.
Oh, really? What happened?
So around the time this was written, which was in 2010, the Yunnan province in southwestern China experienced this historic, devastating drought.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was a severe natural disaster that drastically affected access to drinking water and just ruined crops everywhere.
Okay.
Now, in a normal secular scenario, this is exactly where individual families break down. They panic, they have to compete with each other for scarce resources, or they have to petition the government and outside agencies for relief just to survive the month.
Right, because an individual family does not have the infrastructure to suddenly build a water treatment plant in their backyard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Suofeng proudly points out that during this severe regional crisis, the second home did not rely on any outside help.
None.
None. They did not panic. They simply tapped into that complementation of advantages we were just talking about.
Because they had that giant, hyper-competent Swiss Army knife of a community to rely on.
Yes, exactly. They had members whose natural advantage was logistics, so those people just went out and sourced generators and water pumps.
Okay.
They had people whose advantage was engineering and heavy physical labor, and they went out into these dry valleys, literally dug deep wells themselves, and successfully pumped the water back into the community.
That is incredible.
It is. They handled a crisis that was completely crushing the surrounding villages entirely in-house, smoothly, and without any internal conflict.
Wow. I have to admit, the sheer competence of that is deeply impressive.
Yeah.
But dissolving the family to achieve that level of efficiency, that is still a massive emotional leap for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Because even if the community can dig a well way better than I ever could, I still want my spouse, you know? I still want that primary bond. If you do not have a partner whose primary focus is you, or children who are your specific focus, does not that make people feel completely isolated?
Interestingly, the blueprint argues the exact opposite. It claims that this system does not cause isolation at all. Rather, it creates a community that operates like the village of thousand-year world.
Okay.
Shafeng notes that at the time of writing, they had over 60 people from wildly different geographic areas and backgrounds, all living together in one location.
60 people.
Yeah, and he insists there are rarely any contradictions, conflicts, or unpleasantness between any of them.
Wait, so they actually believe the family unit itself is the cause of conflict?
From their perspective, yes.
Really?
Yeah, they view the nuclear family as inherently tribal. It creates this us versus them mentality where you naturally prioritize your child over your neighbor's child.
Well, yeah, that is human nature.
But removing that tribalism, according to the text, is what creates universal peace within their group. Everyone treats everyone equally because no one has a special exclusive claim on anyone else.
You know, as I read deeper into the text, though, I realized that surviving a drought or even removing tribalism, it is not even the primary reason they dissolved the family.
No, it is not.
The real reason is about eradicating a very specific, very heavy type of debt.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the philosophical underpinnings of this, the second home operates heavily on Lao Tzu's teaching of embracing the one as the model of world.
Okay.
Because they have eliminated the contention for power, the battle for status, and the fight for financial interests, their concept of mutual service takes on a completely different meaning than it does in our world.
See, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because the text makes a really profound observation about how you and I operate every single day.
Yeah.
It points out that in the secular world, even the nice things we do for our own family members have a hidden price tag.
They absolutely do.
Right, we load our favors with self-interest. The blueprint explicitly states, and this is a quote, "Emotional debt is also a kind of debt."
It is a striking psychological concept.
It really is.
I mean, society is very comfortable talking about financial debt. We have credit scores, bankruptcy courts, interest rates. But we rarely, if ever, acknowledge this massive ledger of emotional debt we keep in our heads all the time.
Let us make an analogy out of this so that the listener can really feel it. Think about how we manage relationships in the real world. We essentially operate on a credit system, right?
Yeah.
You hold these invisible IOUs. Think about the guilt trip a relative might give you, like, I paid for your college, so you have to come home for the holidays.
Yep, classic example.
Or even something small, like, I helped you move that heavy couch last week, so you owe me a ride to the airport tomorrow.
Right.
We literally use guilt as a secular currency. We trade in emotional obligations all the time.
And those obligations are just exhausting. They build up so much resentment over time.
So much resentment.
By removing the traditional family structure and the whole concept of personal property, Shuifeng's system is basically trying to force everyone to use a psychological debit card, so to speak.
Oh, I like that. A debit card instead of a credit card.
Exactly. A balance never accrues. You do the community laundry, because your advantage is organization and you actually like the rhythm of it. You do not do it because your spouse nagged you, which then allows you to hold it over their head for the rest of the week.
So the emotional ledger is wiped to zero every single day.
Every single day. And because you owe nobody anything, the text argues you can live entirely without psychological burdens.
Wow.
In the second home, mutual service does not involve owing debt. Each person just does their natural share of work for the collective. As a result, everyone is free from that heavy, unseen spiritual burden of, I owe you.
That is so interesting.
They claim to live a life of ease and happiness precisely because the transactional nature of human relationships has been entirely deleted.
Okay, on paper, that sounds incredibly freeing. Imagine never feeling guilty about saying no to a favor.
It sounds great.
It does. But practically speaking, I keep looking for the catch.
Of course.
Because if I owe nobody anything, right? If I do not even owe my own family emotional support, what keeps this community from just turning into a chaotic, selfish free-for-all?
That is the big risk, right?
Yeah. If I have zero obligations, what stops me from just sitting under a tree all day and taking advantage of everyone else's hard work?
Well, that is the exact tension a moneyless, familyless community has to manage. How do you prevent laziness and chaos?
Right. How does do it?
They manage it through incredibly strict individual boundaries, which we might call an anti-martyrdom mandate.
An anti-martyrdom mandate.
Yeah. The text outlines that everyone must adhere to something called the 800 values for a new era human being.
800 values. That is a lot of values.
It is a comprehensive list.
Yeah.
But the absolute core of this value system is that you are responsible only to the greatest creator and to yourself.
Okay.
Everything you do is to accomplish your own spiritual cultivation.
Which leads to one of the most fascinating rules in the entire blueprint. I could not believe this when I read it. The text strictly forbids anyone from saying the phrase, "I do this for the good of the home and all people."
Yes, no high-sounding lectures are allowed whatsoever. You cannot impose your life outlook, your morals, or your values on anyone else.
Wow.
There is zero room for the martyr who loudly suffers for the group, because doing so creates, as we just discussed, emotional debt.
That makes perfect sense, because if someone is constantly walking around saying, "Oh, look at all the sacrifices I am making for this community. Look how late I stayed up cooking for everyone."
Right, playing the victim.
Suddenly, everyone else feels like they owe that person gratitude. That person gains informal power. They basically become a social creditor. So the community just outlaws that behavior entirely.
It goes even further into this concept of non-interference. There are two incredibly specific rules enforced in the second home.
What are they?
The first is, I do not mind the troubles of other people. I do not concern other people's business. And the second is, I do not offer help if no one asks for it. And I will immediately give a hand if someone turns to me for assistance.
Wait. Let us look at the mechanics of that second one.
Sure.
Imagine you are walking through the courtyard of this community, okay? And you see someone struggling to carry a really heavy box.
Okay.
They are dropping it, they're sweating, they are clearly having a really hard time. According to these rules, you are supposed to just walk right past them unless they make eye contact and explicitly say, "Please help me."
Yes, that is exactly what the rule says.
That feels totally counterintuitive. Should not a utopian community be rushing to help each other all the time?
Well, this raises an important question about how we define help versus how we define interference. From our secular perspective, offering unprompted help is the polite, kind thing to do. It shows we care about our neighbors.
Yeah, it is basic manners.
But from Weffing's perspective, unsolicited help is a secular intrusion.
An intrusion.
Yes. It assumes you know better than the other person. It assumes they are incapable of managing their own struggle. And most dangerously, it forces an unasked-for emotional debt onto them.
That is a wild shift in perspective.
It really is.
So by rushing over to help them with the box when they did not ask, I am essentially forcing a transaction on them just to satisfy my own ego.
Exactly.
I get to feel like a hero, and I am forcing them to be grateful to me.
You hit the nail on the head. You are robbing them of their own cultivation process and making them your emotional debtor.
Wow.
The strict boundaries, the specific consciousness of celestial being, as the text calls it, they are absolutely vital to keeping the community from collapsing.
That is so interesting.
In fact, Shifeng explicitly claims that this strict rule of non-interference is the fundamental guarantee that the Lifechanyuan movement will never evolve into a religious or political organization.
Oh, I see the logic there. Because think about how religions and political movements usually start in the real world. They are almost always built around a charismatic leader who claims they are going to save people or who insists on helping people who have not even asked for it.
Yes, the savior complex is the literal foundation of hierarchy.
Yeah.
So if no one in the second home is allowed to play the savior, and no one is allowed to offer unsolicited help, a hierarchy of power simply cannot form.
It nips it in the bud.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You cannot build a cult of personality if everyone is strictly minding their own business and only responsible for their own connection to the creator. The rules essentially act as an immune system against authoritarianism.
Okay, so let us pull all of this together. We are looking at a community that has systematically dismantled the family unit.
Yes.
They totally eradicated money, and they outlawed the very concept of the unsolicited favor.
Correct.
And they did all of this to keep the emotional and financial ledgers of human interaction at absolute zero.
That is blueprint.
So what does this all mean? I want you, the listener, to really think about your own life today. Think about your daily routine from the moment you woke up this morning.
It is a great exercise.
How many of your actions today were driven by financial debt? Going to a job you do not love just to pay a bill.
Right.
And how many of your actions were driven by emotional debts? Like doing something purely because you feel you owe a family member or a friend or a coworker. What would your day actually look like, and how would you feel if both of those ledgers were wiped completely to zero?
It is a profound psychological question to ask yourself. And as we wrap up, there is a fascinating paradox within this source material to leave you with.
Oh, what is the paradox?
Well, as we just discussed, the text fiercely insists on its hyper-practical, rigid rules. Mind your own business. Fix your own water pumps during a drought. Never play the martyr.
Right, very grounded, very secular rule.
Extremely secular.
Yeah.
And they claim these strict boundaries guarantee they will remain grounded and never evolve into a fanatical religion.
Yeah.
Yet, the explicitly stated endgame of all this emotional boundary setting is entirely cosmic. Yes. Wei Feng's text concludes by promising that if the residents adhere strictly to these values, they are guaranteed a march toward the 10,000-year world and the celestial island continent of the Elysium world.
Wow. It is the ultimate contradiction to chew on.
It really is.
They are utilizing the most emotionally detached, rigidly secular rules of non-interference to reach a literal mystical paradise.
Exactly.
Which leaves us with one final thought to mull over today. If a community successfully strips away all familial bonds, all financial ties, and even the basic instinctual human urge to offer unprompted help to someone struggling.
Right.
And they do all of this to reach an Elysium Island. Well, what does human connection actually look like once they finally arrive?
That is the big question.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating blueprint of the second home. Keep questioning the structures of your own world, and we will see you next time.